Hello, Bobbo here once again with a Retro Rewind podcast Minisode. Potential spoilers incoming. That said, in this review, I will be talking about the 2004, let's go with that, film The House of D. Or just House of D if you don't want article adjectives because it's not on the cover there. House of D is a movie that was rated PG-13. It is 97 minutes in length. May 7th of 2004 is when this film came out. Budget of $2 million, and it ultimately made back about $388,500. Not a moneymaker, unfortunately. If this were the podcast, this is where the negative sound would go. So, womp womp. Anyway, this was directed and I believe written as well by David Duchovny. Yes, that David Duchovny. And it stars the late Anton Yelchin, David Duchovny, his wife at the time, Téa Leoni, Erykah Badu, yes, the singer, and the late, great Robin Williams. Jeff Zanelli did the music, if you're into that kind of thing. That all said, time for the classic maker and tragic maker. Classic maker for House of D. This is a coming-of-age film, first of all. Important to know that, because when you have a coming-of-age film, you've got to have emotion. You've got to have those really wrenching, heart-wrenching kind of moments. Those heartstrings have to be pulled, whether it's going to be positive, negative, whatever the case. Coming of age movies, you've got to have touching moments. You have got to be invested in the character, and your emotions have to be triggered. And yeah, it did that for me. It absolutely made me feel bad for Tom, the main character. It made me happy for him. All those sorts of things. All the emotions. All of them. And, I mean, that's what this movie is trying to be. It wants to be something that makes you think, that makes you feel. And when you think of this movie, you think House of D, and you really start to remember scenes from the movie. You really, you feel it in there. You feel it in your chest. And I do. I do feel that when I think of House of D, and I think of Tom and his relationship with his mom and the girl that he starts to like at school. He's like 12 turning 13. So, right in that age where he's thinking a little more seriously about those kinds of things. The potential girlfriend, by the way, played by Zelda Williams, I believe, Robin Williams' daughter in there. And also, not just the mom, not just the potential girlfriend, but also his best friend Pappas, who is a mentally challenged janitor, played by Robin Williams. And, like I said, the film does a terrific job. I think everybody who likes this movie likes how it tells a very emotional story. And I agree. It totally hits on that point. So, if that's not the classic maker for anybody else watching House of D, I don't know if maybe they watched the movie backwards or something. I don't know. That's I think what it's got to be, basically. The tragic maker on the flip side, there are elements or moments of this film that were a little bit uncomfortable for me. Some of the uncomfortable moments are simply kind of showing you the relationships kind of as they are, and kind of where the character's relationship is. And I get that, and I can kind of roll with that. And then there's other elements where I get a little weirded out. Like I don't want to say too much here because it's just because, but it's for some people like a sex scene will be very and there's nothing like that here. It's PG-13. It's not that kind of a thing. But if you know that kind of feeling, or whether that's your thing or not, that emotion. I had a few moments like this in the movie where it kind of removed me from the movie a little bit, and I just felt a little uneasy. And that's not generally something that a movie can win me completely back from, especially if I'm going to recommend the movie to somebody or not. And certainly if I were to say, I don't know, let's say review a movie in a video context of some sort, it's not something that I would just automatically recommend because, the rest of the movie was great, but this one scene got me really uncomfortable. So, not tragically uncomfortable, I'll tell you that much. As far as my final rating of classic, nostalgic, or tragic, House of D for me gets a nostalgic. If you've seen this movie before and you remember it really being this kind of emotional roller coaster and really, it did it for you, yeah, I recommend going back and checking it out. I think you'll feel the same way. I don't know why that would change. If you haven't seen it, again, it's tough for me to recommend because it's not what I would call just a feel good film. It's got good performances in it. As I said, it works your heart over, man. It's a movie that you feel right in here. But ultimately, I feel like there are elements of this movie that could have been more palatable, a little bit better. And I can't really get into all this in a short-term review like this, but if I sat down and I really studied this thing, maybe I could. I don't know. But nonetheless, House of D for me, a nostalgic. If you haven't seen it before and you like movies that will get you kind of all emotional, that are not Hallmark movies, I will say that. It's not a Hallmark movie. I might recommend it. Maybe. Possibly. Kind of. So, that's my rating on House of D. As for my trivial question based on this film, there comes a moment where this character, Tom, turns 13. And he has a big decision that he has to make, and it's not an easy one. It's one of those questions that would really, like, how could you even possibly grasp the scope of what Tom's got to be thinking about here. But he's got that kind of a decision to make, so I'm going to kind of turn that into the trivial question here. What's a moment where you did something very unorthodox or even inadvisable, but you just felt like you had to do it? Something where you normally would tell yourself or you'd tell anybody else that you're giving advice to, like, nah, don't do that. That's not a great idea. But man, in that case, you just had to do it. Let us know in the comments. And thank you for watching this mini-sode of the Retro Rewind podcast. If you like this, feel free to thumbs it up or like it or leave a star rating or something of that nature. And don't forget to check out, of course, the Retro Rewind podcast with Francisco and Paul. Whether you are checking them out on twitch.tv/Retro Rewind Pod, or if you're just listening to the audio version, that's cool too. Until next time, it's been Bobbo and House of D, which, by the way, that's House of Detention. That's not much of a spoiler, but just in case you were wondering, because I know I had no idea. Until next time.